Hello, this is Rewind, Relax, Release. I'm your host, Daleena. This episode will be geared for sleep, so feel free to go ahead and start getting comfortable. Go ahead and make sure that your pillow is just right and adjust your blankets and settle in for a good night's sleep. And so as not to disturb your sleep later, I want to thank you for listening, and I would like to invite you to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help if you do those things, and share this with any of your friends that might enjoy it. If you have any questions, comments, or episode suggestions, please feel free to email me at rewindrelaxrelease@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and take care of yourself. You're worth it. Now let's get started. This episode is going to be a reading of a collection of works by Helen Keller. The title is The World I Live In. And the first essay that I'll be reading from is titled The Seeing Hand. Relax and enjoy, and I hope you sleep well. The Seeing Hand. I have just touched my dog. He was rolling on the grass with pleasure in every muscle and limb. I wanted to catch a picture of him in my fingers, and I touch him lightly as I would cobwebs. But lo, his fat body revolved, stiffened, and solidified in an upright position, and his tongue gave my hand a lick. He pressed close to me as if he were fain to crowd himself into my hand. He loved it with his tail, with his paw, with his tongue. If he could speak, I believe he would say with me that paradise is attained by a touch, for touch is all love and intelligence. This small incident started me on a chat about hands, and if my chat is fortunate, I have to thank my dog, Star. In any case, it is pleasant to have something to talk about that no one else has monopolized. It is like making a new path in the trackless woods, blazing the trail where no foot has pressed before. I am glad to take you by the hand and lead you along an untrodden way into a world where the hand is supreme. But at the very outset, we encounter difficulty. You are so accustomed to light, I fear you will stumble when I try to guide you through the land of darkness and silence. The blind are to be the best of guides. Still, though, I cannot warrant not to lose you. I promise that you shall not be led into fire or water, or fall into a deep pit. If you will follow me patiently, you will find that there's a sound so fine nothing lives twixt it and silence, and that there is more meant in the things that meets the eye. My hand is to me what your hearing and sight together are to you. In large measure, we travel the same highways, read the same books, speak the same language, yet our experiences are different. All my comings and goings turn on the hand as on a pivot. It is the hand that binds me to the world of men and women. The hand is my feeler with which I reach through isolation and darkness and seize every pleasure, every activity that my fingers encounter. With the dropping of a little word from another's hand into mine, a slight flutter of the fingers began the intelligence, the joy, the fullness of my life, Like Job, I feel as if the hand has made me, fashioned me together round and about, and molded my very soul. In all of my experiences and thoughts, I am conscious of the hand. Whatever moves me, whatever thrills me, it is a hand that touches me in the dark, and that touch is my reality. You might as well say that a sight which makes you glad, or a blow which brings the sting of tears to your eyes, is unreal, as to say that those impressions are unreal which I have accumulated by means of touch. The delicate tremble of a butterfly's wings in my hand, the soft petals of violets curling into cool folds of their leaves, or lifting sweetly out of the meadow grass the clear, firm outline of face and limb, the smooth arch of a horse's neck, and the velvety touch of his nose. All these things and 1,000 resultant combinations which take shape in my mind constitute my world. Ideas make the world we live in, and impressions furnish ideas. My world is built of touch sensations, devoid of physical color and sound, but without color and sound it breathes and throbs with life. Every object is associated in my mind with tactile qualities, which combine in countless ways and give me a sense of power, of beauty, or of incongruity. For with my hands I can feel the comic as well as the beautiful in outward appearance of things. Remember that you, dependent on your sight, do not realize how many things are tangible. All palpable things are morbid or rigid, solid or liquid, big or small, warm or cold, and these qualities are variously modified. The coolness of a water lily rounding in its bloom is different from the coolness of an evening wind in summer. And different again from the coolness of rain that soaks into the hearts of growing things and gives them life and body. The velvet of a rose is not that of a ripe peach or of a baby's dimpled cheek. The hardness of a rock is to the hardness of wood what a man's deep bass is to a woman's voice when it is low. I call beauty I find in certain combinations of all of these qualities. And it is largely derived from the flow of curved and straight lines which is over all things. What does this straight line mean to you? I think you will ask. It means several things. It symbolizes duty. It seems to have the quality of inexorableness that duty has. When I have something to do that must not be set aside, I feel as if I were going forward in a straight line, bound to arrive somewhere, or go on forever without swerving to the right or to the left. That is what it means. To escape this mortalizing, you should ask, how does the straight line feel? It feels as I suppose it looks, straight. A dull thought drawn out endlessly. Eloquence to the touch resides not in straight lines, but in unstraight lines, or in many curved and straight lines together. They appear and disappear, are now deep, now shallow, now broken off, or lengthened, or swelling. They rise and sink beneath my fingers. They are full of sudden starts and pauses, and their variety is as inexhaustible and wonderful. So you see, I am not shut out from the region of the beautiful, though my hand cannot perceive the brilliant colors in the sunset, or on the mountain, or reach into the blue depths of the sky. Physics tells me that I am well off in a world which, I am told, knows neither cold nor sound, but is made in terms of size and shape and inherent qualities. For at least every object appears to my fingers, standing solidly right up, and is not an inverted image on the retina, which I understand your brain is at an infinite, though unconscious labor to set back on its feet. A tangible object passes complete into my brain with warmth of life upon it, and occupies the same place that it does in space, for without egotism the mind is large as the universe. When I think of hills, I think of upward strength I tread upon. When water is the object of my thought, I feel the cool shock of the plunge and the quick yielding of waves that crisp and curl and ripple about my body. The pleasing changes of rough and smooth, pliant and rigid, curved and straight in bark and branches of a tree give the truth to my hand. An immovable rock with its juts and warped surface bends beneath my fingers into all manner of grooves and hollows. The bulge of a watermelon and the puffed up roundness of squashes that sprout, bud and ripen in the strange garden planted where behind my fingertips are ludicrous in my tactile memory and imagination. My fingers are tickled to delight by the soft ripple of a baby's laugh, and I find amusement in its lusty crow of a barnyard autocrat. I once had a pet rooster that used to perch on my knee and stretch its neck and crow. A bird in my hand then was worth two in the barnyard. My fingers cannot, of course, get the impression of a large whole at a glance, but I feel the parts, and my mind puts them together. I move around my house, touching object after object in order before I can form an idea of the entire house. In other people's houses, I can only touch what is shown to me. The chief objects of interest, carvings on the wall, or a curious architectural feature, exhibited like a family album. Therefore, a house with which I am not familiar has for me, at first, no general effect or harmony of detail. It is not a complete conception, but a collection of object impressions which, as they come to me, are disconnected and isolated. But my mind is full of associations, sensations, theories, and with them it constructs the house. The process reminds me of building Solomon's temple, where was neither saw nor hammer nor any tool heard while the stones were being laid one upon another. The silent worker is imagination, which decrees reality out of chaos. Without imagination, a poor thing my world would be. My garden would be a silent patch of earth, strewn with sticks of a variety of shapes and smells. But when the eye of my mind is open to its beauty, the bare ground brightens beneath my feet, and the hedgerow bursts into leaf, and the rose tree shakes its fragrance everywhere. I know how budding trees look, and I enter into an amorous joy of the mating birds, and this is the miracle of imagination. Although, compared with the life-warm, mobile face of a friend, the marble is cold and pulseless and unresponsive, yet it is beautiful to my hand. twofold is the miracle when through my fingers my imagination reaches forth and meets the imagination of an artist, which has embodied in sculpture form. Its flowing curves and bendings are real pleasure, only breath is wanting. But under the spell of imagination, the marble thrills and becomes divine reality of the ideal. Imagination puts sentiment into every line and curve, and the statue in my touch is indeed the goddess herself who breathes and moves and enchants. It is true, however, that some sculptures, even recognized masterpieces, do not please my hand. When I touch what there is of the winged victory, it reminds me at first of a headless, limbless dream that flies toward me in an unrestful sleep. The garments of the victory thrust stiffly out behind and do not resemble garments that I have felt flying, fluttering, folding, and spreading in the wind. But the imagination fulfills these imperfections, and straightway the victory becomes a powerful and spirited figure with the sweep of sea winds in her robes and the splendor of conquest in her wings. I find in a beautiful statue perfection of bodily form, the qualities of balance and completeness. The Minerva, hung with a web of poetic illusion, gives me a sense of exhilaration that is almost physical, and I like the luxuriant wavy hair of Bacchus and Apollo, and the wreath of ivory so suggestive on pagan holidays. So imagination crowns the experience of my hands, and they learned their cunning from the wise hand of another, which itself guided by imagination led me safely in the paths that I knew not, made darkness light before me, and made crooked ways straight. This sleep episode is another essay written by Helen Keller. The title of the collection is The World I Live In. The title of the episode is The Hands of Others. The hands of others. The warmth and protectiveness of the hand are most home felt to me, who have always looked to it for aid and joy. I understand perfectly how the psalmist can lift up his voice with strength and gladness, singing, "I put my trust in the Lord at all times, and his hand shall uphold me, and I shall dwell in safety." In the strength of human hand, too, there is something divine. I am told that the glance of a beloved eye thrills one from a distance, but there is no distance in the touch of a beloved hand. Even the letters I receive are kind letters that betray the heart's deep history, in which we feel the presence of a hand. It is interesting to observe the differences in hands of people. They show all kinds of vitality, energy, stillness, cordiality. I never realized how living the hand is until I saw those chill plaster images in Mr. Hutton's collection of casts. The hand I know in life has fullness of blood in its veins and is elastic with spirit. How different Mr. Hutton's hand was from its dull, insensate image. To me, the cast lacks the very form of the hand. Of many casts in Mr. Hutton's collection, I did not recognize any, not even my own. But a loving hand I never forget. I remember in my fingers the large hands of Bishop Brooks, brimful of tenderness and a strong man's joy. If you were deaf and blind and could have held Mr. Jefferson's hand, you would have seen in it a face and heard a kind voice unlike any other you have known. Mark Twain's hand is full of whimsies and the drollest of humors, and while you hold it, the drollery changes to sympathy and championship. I am told that the words I have just written do not describe the hands of my friends, but merely endow them with the kindly human qualities which I know they possess, and which language conveys in abstract words. The criticism implies that I am not giving the primary truth of what I feel. But how otherwise do descriptions in books I read, written by men who can see, render visible the look of a face? I read that a face is strong, gentle, that it is full of patience, of intellect, that it is fine, sweet, noble, beautiful. Have I not the same right to use these words in describing what I feel as you have in describing what you see? They express truly what I feel in the hand. I am seldom conscious of the physical qualities, and I do not remember whether the fingers of a hand are short or long, or the skin is moist or dry. No more can you, without conscious effort, recall the details of a face, even when you've seen it many times. If you do recall the features, and say that an eye is blue, a chin sharp, a nose short, a cheek sunken, I fancy that you did not succeed well in giving the impression of the person. Not so well as when you interpret at once to the heart of the essential mortal qualities of the face, its humor, gravity, sadness, spirituality. If I should tell you in physical terms how a hand feels, you would be no wiser for my account than a blind man to whom you describe a face in detail. Remember that when a blind man recovers his sight, he does not recognize the commonest thing that has been familiar to his touch, the dearest face intimate to his fingers. And it does not help him at all that things and people have been described to him again and again. So you, who are untrained of touch, do not recognize a hand by the grasp. And so too, any description I might give would fail to make you acquainted with a friendly hand which my fingers have often folded about, and which my affection translates to my memory. I cannot describe hands under any class or type. There is no democracy of hands. Some hands tell me that they do everything with maximum bustle and noise. Other hands are fidgety and unadvised, with nervous, fussy fingers, which indicate a nature sensitive to the little pricks of daily life. Sometimes I recognize with foreboding the kindly but stupid hand of one who tells me with many words news that there is no news. I have met a bishop with a jocose hand, a humorist with a hand of leaden gravity, a man of pretentious valor with a more temperous hand, and a quiet, apologetic man with a fist of iron. When I was a little girl, I was taken to see a woman who was blind and paralyzed. I shall never forget how she held out a small, trembling hand and pressed sympathetically into mine. My eyes fill with tears as I think of her. The weariness, pain, darkness, and sweet patience were all to be felt in her thin, wasted, groping, loving hand. Few people who do not know me will understand, I think, how much I get of the mood of a friend who is engaged in oral conversation with somebody else. My hand follows his motions. I touch his hand, his arm, his face. I can tell when he is full of glee over a good joke, which has not been repeated to me, or when he is telling a lively story. One of my friends is rather aggressive, and his hand always announces the coming of a dispute. By his impatient jerk, I know he has an argument ready for someone. I have felt him start as a sudden recollection or a new idea shot through his mind. I have felt grief in his hand. I have felt his soul wrap itself in darkness, majestically as in a garment. Another friend has positive, empathetic hands, which show great pertinency of opinion. She is the only person I know who empathizes her spelled words and accents them as she emphasizes and accents her spoken words when I read her lips. I like this varied emphasis better than the monotonous pound of unmodulated people who hammer their meaning into my palm. Some hands, when they clasp yours, beam and bubble over with gladness. They throb and expand with life. Strangers have clasped my hand like that of a long-lost sister. Other people shake hands with me as if with fear that I may do them mischief. Such persons hold out civil fingertips which they permit you to touch, and in the moment of contact they retreat, and inwardly you hope they will not be called upon again to take that hand of a dormouse valor. It betokens a prudish mind, ungracious pride, and not seldom mistrust. It is the antipode to the hand of those who have large, lovable natures. The handshake of some people makes you think of accident and sudden death. Contrast this ill-boding hand with the quick, skillful, quiet hand of a nurse whom I remember with affection because she took the best care of my teacher. I have clasped the hands of some rich people that spin not and toil not and yet are not beautiful. Beneath their soft, smooth roundness, what a chaos of undeveloped character. I am sure there is no hand comparable to the physician's in patient skill, merciful gentleness, and splendid certainty. No wonder that Ruskin finds in the sure strokes of the surgeon the perfection of control and the delicate precision for the artist to emulate. If the physician is a man of great nature, there will be healing for the spirit in his touch. This magic touch of well-being was in the hand of a dear friend of mine who was our doctor in sickness and health. His happy, cordial spirit did his patients good, whether they needed medicine or not. As there are many beauties of the face, so the beauties of the hand are many. Touch has its ecstasies. The hands of people of strong individuality and of sensitiveness are wonderfully mobile. In a glance of their fingertips, they express many shades of thought. Now and again I touch a fine, graceful, supple-wristed hand, which spells with same beauty and distinction that you must see in the handwriting of some highly cultivated people. I wish you could see how prettily little children spell in my hand. They are wild flowers of humanity, and their finger motions wild flowers of speech. All of this is my private science of palmistry, and when I tell your fortune, it is by no mysterious intuition or gypsy witchcraft, but by natural, explicable recognition of the embossed character of your hand. Not only is the hand as easy to recognize as the face, but it reveals its secrets more openly and unconsciously. People control their countenances, but the hand is under no such restraint. It relaxes and becomes listless when the spirit is low and dejected. The muscles tighten when the mind is excited or the heart glad, and permanent qualities stand written on it all the time. This sleep episode is another reading of an essay by Helen Keller. The collection of essays is The World I Live In, and the essay itself is titled The Hand of the Race. The Hand of the Race. Look in your century dictionary, or if you're blind, ask your teacher to do it for you, and learn how many idioms are made of the idea of hand, and how many words are formed from the Latin root manus, enough words to name all the essential affairs of life. Hand, with quotations and compounds, occupies 24 columns, 8 pages of this dictionary. The hand is defined as the organ of apprehension. How perfectly the definition fits my case in both sense and word. Apprehend. With my hand I seize and hold all that I find in 3 worlds: physical, intellectual, spiritual. Think how man has regarded the world in terms of the hand. All life is divided between what lies on one hand and the other. The products of skill are manufactures. The conduct of affairs is management. History seems to be on the record, alas, for our chronicles of war, as the maneuvers of the armies. But the history of peace too, the narrative of labor in the field, the forest, and the vineyard, is written in the victorious sign manual, the sign of the hand that conquers the wilderness. The laborer himself is called a hand. In manacle and manumission, we read the story of slavery and freedom. The minor idioms are myriad, but I will not recall too many lest you cry, hands off. I cannot desist, however, from the word game until I have set down a few. Whatever is not one's own by first possession is second hand. That's what I'm told my knowledge is. But my well-meaning friends come to my defense, and not content with endowing me with natural first-hand knowledge, which is rightfully mine, ascribe to me a preternatural sixth sense, and credit to miracles and heaven-sent compensations all that I have won and discovered with my good right hand, and with my left hand too, for with that I read, and it is as true and honorable as the other. By what half-development of human power has the left hand been neglected? When we arrive at the acme of civilization, shall we not be ambidextrous? And in our hand-to-hand contests against difficulties, shall we not be doubly triumphant? It occurs to me, by the way, that when my teacher was training my unreclaimed spirit, her struggle against the powers of darkness with the stout arm of discipline and the light of manual alphabet was in two senses a hand-to-hand conflict. No essay would be complete without the quotations from Shakespeare. In the field which the presumption of my youth I thought was my own, he has reaped before me. In almost every play there are passages where the hand plays a part. Lady Macbeth's heartbroken soliloquy over her little hand, from which all the perfumes of Arabia will not wash the stain, is the most pitiful moment in the tragedy. Mark Antony rewards Scaurus, the bravest of his soldiers, by asking Cleopatra to give him her hand. Commend unto his lips thy favoring hand. In a different mood, he is enraged because Thyras, whom he despises, has presumed to kiss the hand of the queen, my playfellow, the kingly seal of high hearts. When Cleopatra is threatened with humiliation of gracing Caesar's triumph, she snatches a dagger, exclaiming, I will trust my resolution and my good hands. With the same swift instinct, Cassius trusts his hands when he stabs Caesar. Speak, hands, for me. Let me kiss your hand, says one blind Gloucester to Lear. Let me wipe it first, replies the broken old king. It smells of mortality. How charged this single touch with sad meaning. How it opens our eyes to the fearful purging Lear has undergone, to learn that the royal is no defense against ingratitude and cruelty. Gloucester's exclamation about his son, did I but live to see thee in my touch, I'd say I had eyes again, as true to a pulse within me as the grief he feels. The ghost in Hamlet recites the wrongs from which springs the tragedy. Thus was I sleeping by a brother's hand, at once of life, of crown, of queen dispatched. That passage in Othello stops your breath. That passage full of bitter double intention, in which Othello's suspicion tips with evil what he says about Desdemona's hand, and she in innocence answers only the innocent meaning of his words. for 'twas that hand that gave away my heart. Not all Shakespeare's great passages about the hand are tragic. Remember the light play of words of Romeo and Juliet, where the dialogue, flying nimbly back and forth, weaves a pretty sonnet about the hand. And who knows the hand if not the lover? The touch of the hand is in every chapter of the Bible. Why, you could almost rewrite Exodus as the story of the hand. Everything is done by the hand of the Lord and Moses. The oppression of the Hebrews is translated thus: the hand of Pharaoh was heavy upon the Hebrews. Their departure out of the land is told in these vivid words: the Lord brought the children of Israel out of the house of bondage with a strong hand and a stretched out arm. At the stretching out of the hand of Moses, the waters of the Red Sea part and stand all on a heap. When the Lord lifts his hands in anger, thousands perish in the wilderness. Every act, every decree in the history of Israel, as indeed in the history of the human race, is sanctioned by the hand. Is it not used in great moments of swearing, blessing, cursing, smiting, agreeing, marrying, building, destroying? Its sacredness is in the law that no sacrifice is valid unless the sacrificer lays his hand upon the head of the victim. The congregation lay their hands on those who are sentenced to death. How terrible the dumb condemnation of their hands must be to the condemned. When Moses builds the altar on Mount Sinai, he is commanded to use no tool, but rear it with his own hands. Earth, sea, sky, man, and all lower animals are holy unto the Lord, because he has formed them with his hand. When the psalmist considers the heavens and the earth, he exclaims, "What is man, O Lord, that thou art mindful of him? for thou hast made him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. The supplicating gesture of the hand always accompanies a spoken prayer. And with clean hands goes the pure heart. Christ comforted and blessed and healed and wrought many miracles with his hands. He touched the eyes of the blind, and they were opened. When Jairus sought him, overwhelmed with grief, Jesus went and laid his hands on the ruler's daughter, and she awoke from her sleep of death to her Father's love. You also remember how he healed the crooked woman. He said to her, "Woman, thou art loosed from thy infirmity." And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and she glorified God. Look where we will, we find the hand in time and history, working, building, inventing, bringing civilization out of barbarism. The hand symbolizes power and the excellence of work. The mechanic's hand, that the minister of elemental forces, and the hand that hews and saws and cuts and builds. Is useful in the world equally with the delicate hand that paints a wild flower. Or molds a Grecian urn, or the hand of a statesman that writes the law. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of thee. Blessed be the hand, thrice blessed be the hands that work.